Society tells you that being alone means you're broken. That is a lie. For the voluntarily solitary, silence isn't empty, it's full.
Is choosing zero friends a warning sign? Psychology calls it autonomous solitude. They aren't broken or hiding. They simply view being alone as a sanctuary.
No friends by choice? Isn't that just a fear of rejection?
No. They don't avoid people out of fear. They choose silence out of peace.
We confuse being alone with being lonely. But for some, solitude isn't an absence of people, it is a presence of peace.
We live in a world that is obsessed with connection. From the moment we are born, we are socialized to believe that our worth is intrinsically tied to the number of people who surround us. We are taught that popularity is a currency, that silence is awkward, and that being alone is a symptom of failure. Society paints a picture of the solitary individual as an outcast, a pariah, or someone deeply broken. But there's a profound difference between the person who is rejected by the world and the person who, with clear eyes and a full heart, chooses to step away from it. This is the psychology of the voluntary solitary. The individual who has discovered that true power, creativity, and self-mastery are often found not in the noise of the crowd, but in the deep, resonant silence of their own company. This is not a defense of isolation. It is a celebration of self-sufficiency. It is an exploration of the strength it takes to walk a path that few understand, and the immense psychological freedom that awaits those who are brave enough to enjoy their own company. To understand the person who chooses to have no friends, or rather, who chooses a life of minimal social tethering, we must first dismantle the stigma surrounding solitude. We conflate being alone with being lonely, yet they are two entirely distinct states of being. Loneliness is the poverty of self. It is a craving for validation, a desperate hunger to be seen by others because one cannot bear to see oneself. Solitude, on the other hand, is the richness of self. It is the state of being so filled with one's own purpose, thoughts, and inner life that the presence of others becomes a distraction rather than a necessity. The person who chooses solitude is not running away from people, they are running toward themselves. They have realized that the constant maintenance of social masks, the shallow exchanges of pleasantries, and the energy-draining obligations of casual friendships often dilute the potency of their own existence. Consider the mental fortitude required to exist without the constant feedback loop of a peer group. Most people navigate their lives using others as mirrors. They ask, am I doing this right? Or do I look okay? Or is this a good idea? They triangulate their reality based on the opinions of their friends. When you remove that safety net, you are forced to become your own anchor. The psychology of the solitary individual is defined by a radical self-reliance. They must trust their own judgment, validate their own emotions, and chart their own course without the applause or criticism of an audience. This builds a kind of inner steel that is rare in today's hyper-connected society. When you no longer need the permission of the tribe to be who you are, you become dangerous in the best possible way. You become authentic. This path is not for the faint of heart. It requires a confrontation with the self that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. When you are alone, there's nowhere to hide. You cannot blame your bad mood on a friend's drama. You cannot distract yourself from your insecurities with gossip or social outings. You're left with your own thoughts, your own fears, and your own dreams. For the voluntary solitary, this confrontation is the crucible of growth. They use their time not to escape reality, but to dissect it. They become the architects of their own minds, clearing out the clutter of societal expectations to make room for original thought. This is why so many of history's greatest thinkers, artists, and innovators were known for their reclusive nature. They understood that to bring something new into the world, one must disconnect from the hive mind and listen to the whisper of intuition that can only be heard in silence. The decision to limit social circles is often rooted in a deep preservation of energy. Social interaction, even when positive, is an energy exchange. For highly perceptive or introspective individuals, the superficiality of modern friendship can feel like a hemorrhage of vital life force. We live in an era of low-maintenance friendships, digital connections, likes, comments, and occasional catch-ups that scratch the surface but rarely touch the soul. The voluntary solitary looks at this landscape and decides to opt out. They are not misanthropes. They simply value depth over breadth. They would rather spend a Friday night reading a book that changes their perspective, building a business, or mastering a skill, than sitting in a crowded room talking about the weather. They treat their time and attention as the finite, precious resources they are, refusing to squander them on interactions that do not nourish their spirit or advance their purpose. There is also a profound element of emotional freedom in this choice. Friendships, while beautiful, come with a complex web of expectations, obligations, and unspoken contracts. There's the pressure to conform, to agree, to pick sides, and to maintain a consistent persona. When you step away from the social game, you are liberated from the performance. You don't have to laugh at jokes you don't find funny. You don't have to feign interest in topics that bore you. You don't have to apologize for needing space. The solitary individual walks through the world with a lightness that comes from shedding these social burdens. They are free to change, to evolve, and to reinvent themselves without the confused commentary of a friend group that only knows the old version of them. This fluidity is essential for high-level personal growth. To become who you're meant to be, you often have to leave behind who you used to be, and sometimes that means leaving behind the people who were attached to your past self. Furthermore, this lifestyle cultivates a unique relationship with the universe and the natural world. When the noise of human chatter fades, the voice of the world gets louder. The solitary individual often feels a deep, almost spiritual connection to their environment. A walk in the forest is not a lonely activity, it is a communion with nature. A quiet morning with coffee is not a void, it is a meditation. They learn to find companionship in books, in art, in the movement of the wind, and in the pursuit of knowledge. They realize that we are never truly alone, for we are part of a vast, intricate web of life. This perspective shifts the focus from who is with me to what is within me and around me. It fosters a sense of gratitude and wonder that is difficult to access when one is constantly distracted by the drama of interpersonal relationships. It's important to address the fear that drives the criticism of this lifestyle. Society pathologizes the loner because the loner represents a threat to the social order. The tribe relies on cohesion. It relies on everyone needing everyone else. The person who says, "I am enough on my own," challenges the very foundation of social dependency. They are a reminder that the chains of social obligation are voluntary. This can trigger insecurity in others who project their own fear of abandonment onto the solitary individual. They assume the loner is sad because they themselves would be sad in that position. But the voluntary solitary is operating on a different frequency. They have moved past the primal fear of exile and found a sanctuary in their own independence. They have discovered that the ability to be alone is the prerequisite for the ability to love. Until you can be happy by yourself, you will always be using other people as crutches to support your own fragility. This journey also redefines the concept of loyalty. The person with no friends is often the most loyal person you will ever meet, loyal to their values, loyal to their vision, and loyal to the truth. Because they do not rely on group consensus to determine right from wrong, they possess a moral clarity that is unclouded by peer pressure. They are not swayed by the mob. They do not cancel others because it is trendy, nor do they support causes simply to fit in. They stand firm in their convictions, even if they stand alone. This integrity is the bedrock of a strong character. It is the quality of the leader who does what is right rather than what is popular. In a world of conformists, the solitary individual is the ultimate rebel, quietly subverting the status quo by refusing to participate in the charade of collective validation. Ultimately, the psychology of the person who chooses solitude is a psychology of abundance, not scarcity. They are not living a lesser life, they are living a focused life. They have cleared the table of unnecessary distractions to feast on what truly matters to them. Whether it is their art, their work, their spiritual practice, or simply the peace of a quiet mind, they pursue it with a singular intensity that is impossible to maintain when one is pulled in a dozen different social directions. They have accepted the trade-off. They trade the comfort of the crowd for the glory of self-discovery. They trade the noise of validation for the silence of understanding. As we peel back the layers of this lifestyle, we see that it is not a rejection of humanity, but a different way of engaging with it. The solitary individual often contributes deeply to the world, but they do so on their own terms. They are the writers who send books out like messages in bottles, the inventors who emerge from their labs with solutions to global problems, the philosophers who map the terrain of the human soul so that others might not get lost. Their connection to humanity is abstract but profound. They love mankind, but they need distance to serve it. They understand that to give your best to the world, you must protect the source of your energy. You must guard your solitude as the sacred fire that fuels your contribution. In the end, the choice to be alone is a declaration of sovereignty. It is a statement that says, I own myself. In a world that tries to lease out every distinct part of your attention and identity, reclaiming your time and your mind is a radical act. It is a journey toward wholeness. The voluntary solitary proves that we are not puzzle pieces waiting for others to complete us. We are entire worlds waiting to be explored. And in that exploration, in that brave and silent journey into the depths of one's own being, we find a companionship that is more reliable, more honest, and more fulfilling than any external validation could ever provide. We find ourselves. And once you have truly found yourself, you will never be lonely again. When we choose to step away from the relentless current of social obligation, we are not merely retreating. We are advancing into a realm of profound clarity that the distracted mind can never hope to access. This is the hidden dimension of the solitary path, the realization that silence is not empty but pregnant with potential. In the absence of external noise, the internal frequencies become audible. The person who is consciously decoupled from the need for a social entourage begins to hear the subtle rhythms of their own intuition, the faint whispers of inspiration that are usually drowned out by the cacophony of groupthink. This is where the true work of a lifetime begins. It is in this hallowed space of solitude that the raw materials of the soul are forged into something durable, something undeniable. The voluntary solitary understands that to build a life of significance, one must be willing to endure the quiet seasons where the only applause comes from within. There's a tremendous, untapped power in the accumulation of focus. Modern society is designed to fragment our attention. We're pulled in 1,000 directions by notifications, social expectations, and the constant demand to perform for an audience. The person who opts out of this cycle reclaims their cognitive bandwidth. Imagine the sheer volume of mental energy that is spent on managing perceptions, navigating social hierarchies, and dissecting interpersonal dramas. Now, imagine channeling that entire reservoir of energy into a single purpose, a craft, a vision, a business, or a philosophy. This is the secret advantage of the solitary individual. They possess a whole mind in a world of fractured attention. They can sustain deep, penetrating thought for hours or days at a time, achieving levels of mastery that remain out of reach for those who are addicted to the dopamine hits of social validation. This path also cultivates a rare and formidable emotional resilience. When you have no friends to lean on during a crisis, you're forced to develop your own internal infrastructure for handling pain. This sounds daunting, but it is actually the ultimate form of empowerment. Most people outsource their emotional regulation. When they feel sad, they call a friend to vent. When they feel unsure, they seek reassurance. While there is comfort in this, there is also a hidden dependency. If the support system fails, the individual collapses. The solitary individual, however, learns to self-soothe, to self-regulate, and to self-validate. They become their own therapist and their own coach. They learn to sit with discomfort without trying to escape it. They stare into the abyss of their own anxieties and realize that they are bigger than their fears. This creates a human being who is virtually unbreakable because their stability is not contingent on the presence or approval of others. Moreover, the decision to walk alone creates a powerful immunity to the virus of groupthink. We like to believe we are independent thinkers, but psychology tells us that we are deeply influenced by the people around us. We adopt their slang, their prejudices, their goals, and their definitions of success. We regress to the mean of our social circle. By removing themselves from the herd, the solitary individual breaks this spell. They are free to form opinions that are truly their own, untainted by the pressure to conform. They can view the world with a detachment that allows for objective analysis. They see society not as a participant, but as an observer. This vantage point reveals the absurdities, the patterns, and the opportunities that the crowd misses. It is often the outsider who changes the world, precisely because they are not trapped inside the logic of the status quo. There is a spiritual dimension to this solitude that transcends the psychological. Throughout history, the desert, the mountaintop, and the cave have been the settings for enlightenment. Why? Because the divine does not compete for attention. The voluntary solitary enters a covenant with the universe. I will be still so that I may know. In this stillness, the ego begins to dissolve. The social self, the avatar we create to survive in the tribe, starts to fade, revealing the authentic self underneath. This is a terrifying process for many, which is why people fill their lives with noise. To be alone is to face the truth of who you are, stripped of titles, accolades, and relationships. But for the brave, this ego death is a rebirth. They discover that they are not their social standing. They are infinite consciousness having a human experience. This realization brings a peace that passes all understanding, a serenity that remains unshaken even when the world is in chaos. This lifestyle also necessitates a re-evaluation of what it means to be productive. The social world equates busyness with importance. If your calendar is full of coffee dates and parties, you're seen as successful. And the solitary individual rejects this metric. They understand that true productivity is not about how much you do, but the impact of what you create. They operate on a different timeline. They are the architects of cathedrals, willing to lay bricks in silence for years, knowing that what they are building will stand long after the gossip of the day has been forgotten. They prioritize legacy over popularity. They would rather write one book that changes a life than attend 100 parties that change nothing. This long-term thinking creates a life of density and weight. While they are not skimming the surface of existence, they are diving into the deep end. Let us also consider the quality of the interactions that do occur. The person with no friends in the traditional sense often has deep, meaningful connections with humanity in the abstract, or with a select few mentors, students, or partners. When they do speak, they do not waste words. They have no patience for the superficial dance of pleasantries. They want to talk about life, death, the cosmos, the struggle, and the dream. Their conversations are intense, transformative, and real. By refusing to dilute their energy on casual acquaintances, they preserve their capacity for intimacy for the moments that truly matter. They teach us that connection is not about frequency, it is about resonance. One moment of true understanding with a stranger can be more valuable than 10 years of shallow friendship. There's a freedom in this life that borders on the ecstatic. It is the freedom of the shapeshifter. When you are not tethered to a fixed group of people who expect you to be a certain way, you are free to evolve rapidly. You can wake up tomorrow and decide to be a completely different person. You can change your career, your philosophy, your style, and your location without having to explain yourself or face the resistance of those who are attached to your old identity. This fluidity allows for a rate of personal growth that is exponential. The solitary individual is a flowing river, never stagnant, always moving toward a larger ocean. They embrace the impermanence of life, understanding that everything changes, and that the only constant relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. Critically, this path requires a mastery of the shadow self. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow as the dark, repressed parts of our psyche. In social groups, we project our shadows onto others. We hate in them what we refuse to see in ourselves. The solitary person has no one to project onto. They must face their own envy, their own anger, their own laziness, and their own greed. They must invite these demons to the table and negotiate with them. This integration of the shadow makes them dangerous in the best sense. They are whole. They are not capable of the naive niceness of the socially conditioned. They possess a mature kindness that is born of knowing their own capacity for malevolence and choosing the good anyway. They are grounded, formidable, and real. Ultimately, the psychology of the voluntary solitary is a testament to the sufficiency of the human spirit. It is a declaration that we are not half beings searching for our other halves in the crowd. We are complete universes. To choose to be alone is to choose to explore that universe with the wonder of an astronaut and the discipline of a monk. It is to say that I am enough, that this moment is enough, and that I do not need to be perceived to exist. This is not a path of sorrow, it is a path of sovereignty. It is the hero's journey in its purest form, the departure from the known world, the initiation in the wilderness of the self, and the return, not with a trophy, but with a transformed soul. So, if you find yourself walking this path, do not let the world convince you that you are lost. You are not a failure because you do not fit into the puzzle. Perhaps you are the piece that belongs to a different game entirely. Embrace the silence. Cherish the solitude. Use this time to sharpen your mind, toughen your spirit, and open your heart to the mysteries that only the quiet can reveal. Stand tall in your independence. In a world of echoes, be the original voice. In a world of reflections, be the source of light. You have chosen the road less traveled, and while it may be lonely at times, it is the only road that leads to the summit of who you truly are. Walk it with pride. Walk it with courage. And know that in the deepest part of your solitude, you are joined by the great spirits of the past who also walked alone to find the truth. You are in good company.